Hi, it's Paul Baines with GreatDad.com, and I just want to do an introduction to the podcast we have with Shaun Dawson, who has himself a podcast that you can find at raising.men. You can find that in all the different podcast platforms as well. But the discussion we're talking about today is really his findings after starting a podcast and having a fairly large number of guests to talk about masculinity, transmitting values to your kids, why it's so important right now, the role of boys. And it's a very interesting conversation with another dad who's kind of maybe a few steps behind me, but maybe closer in age to a lot of our listeners because he's got kids that are 3 and 7 and going through the crux of it. And he's got some advice of things that he's learned as he's become more introspective, especially more recently in terms of how to raise his kids as an intentional dad. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Thanks for listening. Hey, it's Paul Baines with GreatDad.com here in my weekly podcast talking to modern dads about modern fatherhood, which has changed a lot in the time that I've been a dad. And I'm excited to have a younger dad today with me, Shaun Dawson. Welcome, Shaun.
Well, I don't know that I'm a younger dad, but I'm definitely a
You're a young,
dad of younger children. So
well, you're a
that's
little
right.
bit
My,
younger
my
than me. I
children are
can,
a 7-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. She's about to turn 4 in about 2 weeks.
well, unless you got a damn good filter, you are a little bit younger than I
Maybe,
am.
maybe.
So you've got your own podcast, and we'll put that in the show notes. Raising.men is where you can find that. And I guess I'm curious, first of all, because you're relatively new to this, and what motivated you? I mean, I listened to a few episodes. I listened especially that bonus episode where you talk about how kind of the whole meaning of the thing kind of really came home to you with a tragic event. But
Yeah.
what made you want to talk about this issue particularly and motivate you to get going on this thing?
I love that question. It has always been percolating. It's been percolating in the back of my head
Yeah.
since
Okay.
my son was born. And I, you know, I, when I look at my daughter, I'm not worried that she's going to be able to graduate into a culture that is going to welcome her with open arms. She's perfectly aligned for our culture. But when I look at my son, it feels like it wants to turn him into something he's not.
Hmm. Yeah.
And he gets into kindergarten and he's struggling. And not because of anything, he's really smart and he's really capable and he's athletic and he's all these things, but he's got a ton of energy and he's
Yeah.
loud and he wants
Yeah.
to entertain everybody.
Right.
And these are things that it's like they're ingrained in him. It's part of what makes him a boy.
Yeah.
But the school doesn't want him to be a boy. The school wants him to sit down and pay
Sure.
attention and not disrupt things and all of that stuff. And that is a microcosm of the way that I think we're undergoing a little bit of a crisis of masculinity right now.
Yeah.
And the nature of that crisis is that there are just extreme voices out there. The discourse is dominated by these extreme voices. On one side, they want to paint masculinity as evil by nature and it
Right.
should be
Yep.
suppressed. And on the other side, it wants to adopt everything that is horrible and call that
Yeah.
masculinity.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And neither one of those things are remotely true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so between those two things, I wanted to make a study of, it's my job to make sure that my son and my daughter have the skills and capabilities and wherewithal to thrive in the culture that they will graduate into.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make a study of that, but I also wanted to add my voice to the miasma of voices out there and try to be a force to bring things back into what I consider to be a more rational and sane approach.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, I think, I think that when I got started this whole thing and with supporting dads, there weren't very many male voices
Right.
supporting parenthood, or intentional parenthood, or good fatherhood, or just being present. And it's great to have more people talking about how important it is, how you go about it intentionally, as I know you say in some of you've discussed in some of your podcasts. I remember myself growing up. I consistently had bad marks on does not listen and
Obey.
does not obey, and yeah, doesn't behave well in class. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I think in the past there was a lot more there that existed, and boys kind of fit into that. And because of the way the system worked, they got overwhelmingly more attention as they went along, and
Yeah,
girls were kind of intentionally or unintentionally kind of left behind. And
I
now
agree.
I agree with you that girls and women are getting a lot more chances. That should not mean that boys are then forced down because we've now made it easier for girls. I mean, both of us have boys and girls, so we want girls and
Yeah.
women to thrive. But how do you do that and make sure that boys are brought up in a way that treasures the good parts of boyhood
Yeah.
without destroying them? So good.
Yeah. You're keying on something that is really, really key to this entire thing. And that is, it's not a zero sum game.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
fixed pie.
Exactly.
Our boys can thrive and our girls can thrive.
Yeah.
That's what we should be shooting for. And, frankly, our culture doesn't have that embrace. It really does think that, oh, well, in order for our girls to win, the boys have to lose. And that's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like a lot of things, there's not a lot of nuance in that conversation
That's right.
where you could
Nuance is
say,
dying.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what on your website. You talk about wanting to promote courage, character, and purpose in our young men. And I mean, that's not political. That's not some sort of agenda. That sounds like a pretty damn good thing for all people to strive for, to have those three attributes. How did you come up with those three as cornerstones?
Yeah, I wanted really what I wanted to do was start developing a healthy vision of modern masculinity.
Hmm.
And the masculinity that I was that you and I grew up with is the Marlboro Man, right? It was
Yeah.
Clint
Yeah.
Eastwood in the
Yeah.
westerns. It was very, we would call it stoic, but wasn't even stoic. Stoicism, as a practice, is there's actually a really healthy aspect of that. It's not. It's emotionless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that maybe that worked, right? And maybe that was part of, what does it mean to be a man? Well, it means that you're a protector. It means that you're a provider.
Yeah. Those
Well,
are good. Those are good things.
absolutely. 1,000 years ago, even not all that long ago, and actually a couple hundred years ago, being a protector, there was a much more physical component to being a protector. You
Right.
actually maybe you had to go to war. And still people have to go to war, and that's part of it. But most of us are insulated from that. And being a protector is not as much these days about providing physical protection as it is about providing a safe space for your family to thrive. And
Yeah.
the metaphor that I like to use, it's like having a castle. Being a man is being a castle. And if you focus on the strength of the walls and you focus on having an impenetrable castle, what you're going to end up with is a castle with a very small courtyard. And that was what was necessary in the medieval days, right?
Yeah.
You actually, that is what you did. You had a motte and you had a bailey, and the actual fortified part of the castle was very, very small. But now we live in a safer world, and and it's much more important that, as opposed to having really, really strong walls and an area that is really, really heavily fortified, what you really want to maximize is the amount of area that can thrive under your domain.
Mm. Hmm.
And if you think about it like that, if you think about, oh, I need strong walls, then I'm going to create this very small, very powerful, impenetrable thing, and I'm going to
Right.
be this emotionless robot. Whereas if I'm trying to create an environment that is big as possible, where the villages can thrive and do what they need to thrive. I'm going to think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, and it's a lot more about making sure that the people have emotional safety, that they feel free to come to you with their problems,
Yeah. Yeah.
that, and that is how you get your environment, and you get the village under your control, under your domain, to thrive. And that's how you increase the size of your influence as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. I mean, in the past, it was looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You were literally protecting your family
Yeah.
from attackers, people taking your food, taking your wife, your kids, stealing them in the middle of the night, and all the rest. Now we know more about childhood development and this notion of safety. Yes, it does start with fear of the fear of some animal coming in and killing you from underneath your bed or whatever.
That's
But
right.
what you're talking about is also this emotional safety, which is key to childhood development, and the dad's role in making sure their family feels safe, both physically and emotionally, for all the stuff that's going to come at them.
Yeah. Yeah, I did an interview yesterday, with a guest who pointed me at a prayer that General Douglas MacArthur wrote for his son while he was the Supreme Allied Commander in World War II in the Pacific. And one of the lines, and by the way, that prayer is absolutely worth looking up. It made my wall when I found out about it. I printed it out and I put it on my wall. And but there's a line in that, and it's about, build me a son, O Lord, is how it starts.
Oh yes, yeah. Think of
But the line that I want to call attention to is um there's this part that says, let him, achieve, have some difficulty. And then he says here, by having difficulty, he says here, let him learn to stand up in the storm, and let him learn compassion for those who fail. And I can't think of a more concise and distilled definition of masculinity than that. You stand up in the storm and you have compassion for those who fail.
yeah, yeah. Um, it brings up a lot of questions about all those masculine values we hear about a lot of times, and I think developing a new definition of them, or a new list of ones that are true without being problematic, I guess, be the nice way to say it.
Yeah, and
Is
I mean, a lot of what's out there is performative,
Yeah,
right? It's the appearance of strength as opposed to actual strength. We actually, social media, for example, rewards the appearance of strength much more than it does actual strength.
yeah,
And that's not it. That's not the deal.
yeah, yeah. So how do you personally differentiate between? I mean, it's kind of a nuanced discussion. Like if you talk
Yeah.
about a protector as being a masculine value, that can get really fuzzy. I mean, does it mean carrying a gun around with you all the time, or does it mean
Might, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but
being
probably
there for your
not.
kids? Yeah, probably not for most of us, because we
Yeah.
don't live in that kind of
Yeah, I
situation.
mean, if you're walking around Fallujah, that's
Yeah,
what you need to be carrying a gun around.
yeah,
And by the way, you're in Fallujah to to protect, American values, and to try to make the world a safer place, and that is a masculine endeavor that involves a lot of physical courage and bravery, and strength and training and all of that stuff. But
yeah.
for most of us, if I were to carry a gun on my hip, it would be performative.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what did you look at different values for your family or for your kids that you wanted to? I mean, I publish a list of values for discussion in my coaching that people can kind of pick and choose from, ones that they find that are most important to them, like something like honesty, like transmitting that as a value and putting that on your list of top 5 values. That means you have to live an honest life in front of your kids and make sure that they always see you acting honestly. Did
Yeah.
you do something like that to try to figure out what values are most important to your family?
So I did do that,
Yeah, great.
and but I'll tell you, I'll be real honest with you. I'm not satisfied with that process. And
Okay.
one of the things, so I'll tell you what I came up with. About my wife and I, even before we had kids, we settled on a set of values, and
Good.
we were
Wow.
able to distill it down to almost a mantra. And it was at the time, it was excellence. We wanted to be excellent.
Hmm.
And so that implies a
Yeah.
bunch of other things. It implies, it implies excellence in our relationship, and it implies excellence in our careers, and those sorts of things. And then excellence, it spiders down from there, right? And you could name other values that are related to that, but that was the keystone. And about 5 years ago, I realized that that wasn't sufficient, that I added to that. It's now excellence and joy.
Joy. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's a
so if, there's a bit of a tension in there. And what I've discovered ever since becoming a father is that life is tension. If you ever find someone who's telling you, oh, no, it's always this way, you will find that there is the opposite of this way. And it's sometimes that way. It's sometimes the opposite too. And the reality is that there's a tension between those two things, and you got to manage that tension. And so I felt like excellence and joy really conveyed that tension for us. And we put that on our wall down in our kitchen. And what I've discovered is that I felt like that was going to be sufficient. And I think it was necessary, but I don't think it was sufficient. And actually, frankly, I I wish I had your list at that time. And maybe I need to take it, and maybe I need to add to that, and I need to create more of like Coach Wooden's pyramid, or something along those lines. But one of the things that I've been doing with the Raising Men podcast is I ask every single guest the same question at the end, and I surprise them with it. I don't let them
Oh, yeah.
prepare because
Okay.
I want that.
Top of the mind.
What do I think? And sometimes you get great answers, and sometimes you get less great
Yeah.
answers, and
Yeah.
that's fine. There's,
Yep.
I mean, it's a tough question, and the question is, give me one principle that you think is a good principle for raising men effectively.
Hmm.
And I've started to accumulate those principles, and it's part of my reason for doing the Raising Men podcast is selfish, which is that I want to interact with amazing people, have great conversations, and accumulate this knowledge for myself
Yep.
and for my audience.
Yeah. And you can find that list of the ones you've accumulated
They're
so
on my
far
website.
on the website at
Yeah,
raising.men.com. So or
yeah.
raising.men.
Raising dot
Yeah.
men. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's great. It's interesting how people come up with different principles or solid truths that they know that are bedrock
yeah.
principles. The
I
one,
like your method better. I think what I wish I could have done is gotten a book of, here's a bunch of principles and here's a bunch of values. And those aren't the same thing, but they're related, right? And and then you could thumb through them. Boy, that really resonates with me in this way, and those sorts of things.
well, I think the values things came out of my coaching training to some degree, but also I didn't do that with our kids. I kind of made it up as I went along, and
Yeah.
I want to ask you another question about that process. But the idea was that if you choose those, like in anything, if you choose what you want to focus on, if you start with the end in mind, I want to have kids who strive for excellence and also have a great time doing it. That becomes kind of something that you reiterate at every opportunity. We're going out to do this thing, so we're going to get great at golf, not just play golf just for like a little, you know, dilettante
Yeah.
hobby.
Yeah.
Everything becomes something like we're going to find things that we really love to do, and we're going to strive to be really, really good at them. So
Yeah.
the question for me is, I guess, does it matter? Because we've, up until this time, and we're in a time where there's a lot of navel gazing, there's a lot of introspection, and some of that is good, and some of it's over the top. We've always done it just kind of as it came along, like I mostly did. I didn't have a father present when I was a kid, so I wanted to try to be a really present father. I did that
Yeah.
well, but I had less of an intentional plan about it, except for some things like rituals and certain gratitude exercises. But I kind of made it up as I went along. I don't pretend to be the great dad that the website says.
Neither
But
do I.
but do you think we're changing things? Do you think we're uh, that it is better. I mean, I guess I'm not expecting you to argue with me, but I'm wondering
Yeah.
what you've thought of this, is how much we can change or how much we can affect our kids.
So there are two things that come to mind. And it's another one of these tensions. And
Yeah.
the tension is, on the one hand, um, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right. Right.
On the other hand, as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth
Or have their ear chewed off.
or have their exactly. And man, that was what, like 30 years ago now.
We still remember.
And that's crazy. I mean, most of the people listening to this podcast probably have no idea what we're talking about. And
I'm sorry I interrupted. You
yeah,
said
yeah.
Mike Tyson
And
had
so, but there's a tension between those two things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a plan, and you have to recognize that you might that plan might get thrown out the window. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes.
Yeah.
For fun. And there is, when you're, especially at the kind of higher levels of the game, your commercial pilots or your private jet pilots and that sort of thing, everything is standardized. You are going through a checklist for absolutely everything. And in fact, every possible emergency that can be foreseen has a checklist in it. There's so I'm rated in a jet called the Phenom 300. This is the book. This is a quick reference guide. Every single thing in here is a little checklist, a little procedure to go through. It is, and there is every possible emergency is spelled out in there. But you might have emergencies that aren't in there. And you kind of have to know that book like the back of your heart.
Yeah.
So that well, yeah, this is something that's covered and I'm going to do all this stuff. But then, if you encounter something that's not in there, you are so much better equipped. You're not winging it because you have that foundation of, we've already thought this through and we've already planned that. And so now you have this foundation that you can go on. And I think the same is true with our kids. And the fact is that our kids, we are not builders. We are not making a robot. You are shepherding a flock. And you can point them in the right direction and you can guide them. But if you're too rough on it, or if you're too forceful, they will rebel against that. And you're going to get the opposite of the effect that you're trying to intend, that you intend to have. And, if you're too hands off, then the kids aren't going to have enough structure. And if they don't have enough structure, they're going to grow up beset with anxiety because they think that the world is this unpredictable, terrible place. And it kind of is, but your role as a father, as a protector, is to shield them from that and help them recognize that there is a way of comporting yourself such that you can manage that chaos and focus it into productive activities.
Yeah.
And so I think we can influence it, but we don't control it.
Yeah, I often say that there certainly are exceptions where people have been abused and had horrible parenting, blah, 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 and they still are able to become very highly functioning, very successful people.
Absolutely.
And likewise, people have great parents, and sadly, I see this every day. I know the parents, and I've seen the kids, and I've seen them grow up, and still something goes wrong. But when you look at the odds, far, far, far better that your kids are going to turn out and be productive, members of society if you try to be there for them than if you just say, we'll demonstrate all the wrong behaviors and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And all you can really, I think 80% of it is just doing your best.
Yeah.
And being there and modeling the appropriate behavior. And if you do that, you're in the 80 or 90th percentile.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we all do make mistakes. Even though those of us who have really thought through this a lot, we still make errors all the time.
Even making mistakes is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show how you handle mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. And kids love it when you apologize, when you are wrong and you go against the values that you've tried to transmit, and then you're willing to say, hey, I messed up on this. That can be a transformative parenting moment in and of itself.
Really a powerful lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. what I wanted to go back to your first podcast, your kind of like your bonus one, where you talk about
Yeah.
this thing that happened because it sounded like it beyond what you had been thinking about for a long time. It seemed to be the event or the thing that really got you off the dime that made you say, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna think around someday I'm gonna do a podcast, but it really made you feel like you needed to do this, but you also needed to kind of change, or you need to do some things with your son specifically
Mhm.
immediately and not wait around. Do you want to talk about that at all, or
Yeah,
was it
it's
as big
fine.
a thing as I get a feeling that it was a big moment for you?
Yeah, I might get emotional here, and so yeah, that's just fair warning. Yeah, I had a friend who they lost their son, and I I think about that a lot,
Hmm.
and their son would be the same age as ours today, and I think about it every day. Frankly, I think about the father.
Yeah.
And they lost their son in a way. The father was just standing right there and wasn't able to stop it. And I just can't, you know, you can lose him at any moment.
Yeah.
And and you have to be prepared for that, but also be prepared to have him with you for 100 years.
Right.
And I I just, you know, I thought a lot of what I'm doing here is on autopilot. And a lot of what I'm doing, and the world is so different from the one that I grew up in, that it might as well be a foreign country. And if I operate on autopilot, I'm not going to get the best result. I need to start thinking and being more intentional about how we do this together, my son and I.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure that he he knows, part of that story is that when I was researching whether or not to have kids at all, I got I sat down with a friend of mine, really successful guy, and we were sitting at his house and we were watching his wife and his son play frisbee with their dog in the yard. And I asked him the question that I'd been asking everybody, which was, how do you feel about your decision to have kids or not to have kids?
A rational
Yeah,
choice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, did you decide to have kids, and how do you feel about it? And the good news is that research resulted in everybody was really happy with whatever decision they made. For all intents and purposes, everybody's perfectly thrilled with whatever decision they happen to make. So there really is no wrong answer. But um, but the parents were happy in this like spiritual way. And this guy, he put it perfectly. And he said, I love my wife. My wife, she's great. We got a great relationship. I love her. She's fantastic. He goes, but that boy is my soulmate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of got chills. And I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want what this friend of mine is feeling at this very moment. I want that. And when my boy was born, it couldn't have been further from the truth. I did not feel that way at all. I felt like this is just a eating, puking,
Yeah.
crapping noisemaker.
Yeah.
And it's ruining my life. And I felt shame about that because
Glad you say that.
what I thought was my wife fell magically in love with my boy the instant she saw him. The instant he was out of her body, they put her in her put him in her arms, and she was in tears and she was in love with him.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way at all.
Yeah.
And I thought I was supposed to, and I felt like a sociopath.
Yeah.
And what I've discovered since then, I opened up with that. I opened up about that with somebody, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly how I felt." And it turns out I've since talked to lots and lots of people, and I swear 90% of them say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's the ones who fall immediately in love with their sons that are freaks. We're the normal ones. And by the way, that would be wonderful. But it develops over time. And I started feeling the twinge of that when I started teaching him things. When he started as a baby learning how to do
Around
things.
2, I think is.
I was like, now I get it.
Yeah.
And then I also thought back to some stuff that happened as I was a kid, and my dad essentially trying to say that to me. My dad trying to say to me, "Son, you're my soulmate." And I didn't get it because he was saying it so imperfectly. He was saying it in this kind of stilted way. And it's not enough to say the words, right? It's
Right.
you have to act it. You have to, they have to feel it. And so, you know, this combination of this realization that these friends of mine had lost their son and will never have the chance to do that. And that I'm kind of pissing away the opportunity with my own boy to convey that to him and make him feel that way. And we're both, if I don't do that, we're both the poorer for it.
Yeah.
It kind of made me, I don't know, step up and do this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever thing that it takes to make you realize how short the time is. And also with that goal in mind, I mean, that sometimes does happen organically, but you're really focusing on is extremely strong.
Yeah.
I'm just chuckling because yesterday I did another podcast with somebody who said exactly what you and I did not experience, which is the minute that I saw that boy, I was like totally in love, and I said, "Well, you are an outlier because most people."
Good for that person. I would love it, and I wish that were me.
And I'm glad you mentioned the fact that you felt shame and you felt like what's wrong with me? Am I a sociopath? Because I don't feel that. I think it's very common among men.
I think it is too, and this is why I talk about it all the time because I mean we need to talk more about this stuff. Men don't talk.
Yeah, especially about things
talk.
like this.
Yeah.
Well, Shaun, I'm really glad we got a chance to talk a little bit. Did want to ask you that question that I did that I warned you whether you have some advice for younger dads with younger kids who are just starting out. Maybe it is just don't feel shame about not feeling that emotional bond for a little while. But
so that's part of it, and I think there's really two things that I have absolutely learned 100% in the months that I've been, talking to really smart folks like yourself, really sitting down for really deep, meaningful interviews, what I consider to be, there's two main takeaways that I have so far. And there will be more, but the two main takeaways, the first one is, give yourself the grace to understand that you're doing your best. And you doing your best and you trying to be intentional about it, and the very fact that you're listening to a podcast like this means that you're already crushing it. And so, allow yourself to feel that pride. You deserve it because you're a great parent. Yeah. That's one thing. And the second thing is 80 to 90% of it is modeling. You want to raise a great man, be a great man. Just go out and be that. And if you haven't been, then go out and be it starting today. You can.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
It will never be too late.
Yeah.
And so that's it. If you do those two things, the vast majority of all of the consternation goes away.
Yeah. That's good. That's very good advice. Yeah. Well, Shaun, people can find you at raising.men, as we said. Those principles are there, and a list of you've got about 20 plus podcasts under your belt, and
about
growing,
that.
yeah.
We've got several more recorded, and it's just it is such a great topic.
Yeah.
We've got so many amazing guests,
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got we're on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Google and Spotify and all the places. And we're also on socials on Instagram, Raising Men _ podcast. And man, I love hearing from people and just love interacting. So definitely,
Yeah.
definitely reach out to
But
me.
we can all learn more about this process, even no matter what age our kids are all the time.
Yeah,
So
no
yeah.
question.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Paul Banis with GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching offerings at GreatDad.com/go, including a free course on gratitude that's available for our podcast listeners. So remember, strong family starts with you. Take care until next time.
Thanks, Paul.